Good morning, everybody. It's the 12th of October, 2022, and I'd like to start off by saying thank you for joining me. I'm glad that a lot of the people I noticed are of the same mindset as I am, people that at least watch my videos. And to that effect, there's news about Tulsi Gabbard, and she has officially withdrawn, her membership of the Democratic Party. So I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way that I do. Tulsi Gabbard is possibly the greatest American politician that there is today, and I don't know what her future is going to be. She might be turn out to be some kind of a personality on a news show or something. I'm sort of thinking that because she's been doing a lot of appearances lately on certain news shows, but we definitely don't want to lose her voice because she's one of the very few sane voices in American politics, and instead you get a lot of these people like what's his name? Where's Abraham Lincoln? He said he's going to be here today. Where's Abraham Lincoln? People like that, that are looking for dead people and shaking hands with invisible beings that maybe were supposed to have been there but weren't there, and getting directions from the Easter Bunny, but let alone trying to get us into a nuclear war or God knows what people like that are trying to lead us into. But anyhow, yes, you should look up on the internet and find out what her words were and what her thoughts are. Tulsi Gabbard, as I say, a very sane voice in the world today, desperately needed, and I can almost guarantee you there's a lot of these sane leaders probably absolutely love Tulsi Gabbard. If she were the president of the United States, things would be much, much different today. So that's all I want to say about Tulsi Gabbard. But some of the other news, as you might have heard, it's been proven that a lot of the planning of these terrorist attacks on the Kerch Bridge, the Crimean Bridge, done and perpetrated by Ukraine, was actually planned by the British, British Special Forces people, probably MI6, and I have something to say about that. It was actually mostly first broken by the Gray Zone, and the reporter for the Gray Zone is Kit Klarenberg, and he mentioned that it was a UK act, and he got his information from Pepe Escobar, who actually works for the Asian Times, and is a great investigative journalist. He's the one that wrote the book Pipelineistan. Matter of fact, I mentioned the Gray Zone, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, and I also mentioned Pepe Escobar, but I had no idea that this stuff would be brought out right now. But Pepe Escobar, somebody spilled the beans to him. Somebody was in the British intelligence, and they even mentioned the names. It was, the one who actually commissioned coming up with a plan, apparently, of blowing up this Crimea Bridge. It was this MI6 director called Chris Donnelly, and the one who actually wrote out the plans and did the research, his name was Hugh Ward. And I guess the Bulgarian government is slightly involved in this, even though they don't talk that much about it. They talk about some implication of a former minister of defense, Andris Butkevičius, or whatever his name is, from Lithuania, who's done some really dastardly deeds, got people purposefully killed in 1991. They call it like a Vilnius Bloody Sunday, when he had these nationalists and put them purposely in the line of fire of Soviet snipers, and that did a mass killing, and he engineered that purposefully. So he's not a very nice guy. But I'll tell you what, I've been to Bulgaria, and I know how that is. I stayed with some people there, and he had a metal detector. He had some friends, and they would go out and look for ancient coins, because a lot of empires had at least resided in Bulgaria, if not maybe marched through and commanded, such as the Romans, and they would look for old coins, and they found some. Of course, when I was with them, I got one coin. It was some obscure Roman emperor, and I was kind of afraid. This is a bronze coin, just a bronze coin, but trying to even just get it out of Bulgaria because it's normally not really allowed. So I was thinking, oh, how am I going to do this? But when I went through, it was at the airport in Burgas, not in Varna or Sofia. I went through Burgas and went back to Germany, and the person at the detector, I believe, he saw those coins. He said, and then he just let me go through. I guess some of these minor things are not such a big deal. However, if you're going through with a car in Bulgaria, they check your car vigorously. They go with mirrors underneath and all that. And a lot of these explosives that blew up on this bridge, they originated in Bulgaria. And lo and behold, this defense minister, Andrius Bukovic, or whatever his name is, he was involved in the weapons trade of bringing weapons from Bulgaria into Ukraine to be used, to bomb the Donbass. So that's just a kind of a heads up. At least that's all according to the Gray Zone, and they do very good recording. But anyway, when the people from the Gray Zone contacted this Hugh Ward to say, were you involved in the planning of any sort of a possible attack on this Kerch Bridge in Crimea, he has said he had no comment, and he first has to talk to Chris Donnelly, his boss, and ask him what he is allowed to say and what he's not allowed to say. In other words, obviously, and then they had elaborate plans. It was all done with diagrams and where they're supposed to place bombs. But they were talking about two possibilities, either using cruise missiles and to strike these columns, or to use divers and plant explosives on some of these columns to collapse this bridge. And neither one of these things happened. It was instead this truck bomb, apparently, and that probably indicates that Britain actually didn't do this attack. They were just planning on it and gave the information, obviously, to the Ukrainians as well as the Lithuanians. But the Ukrainians probably just came up with their own plan and blew it. But in a way, it actually still implicates the UK. So being some very nice guys, as you can imagine. Sergei Kupriyanov. And he was mentioning that on November 6th of 2015, they actually found an underwater unmanned drone, a NATO underwater unmanned drone, directly underneath one of the pipelines, the Nordstream pipelines. But this drone was filled with explosives. It was completely packed with 1.4 kilograms of a shaped charged warhead, able to blow up the pipeline. And it was found underneath the pipelines on a routine check by Gazprom. And that was first reported, I guess, on Rossiya 24, Russian news channel. And, they interviewed the spokesperson as well, this Gazprom spokesperson. But it's just noteworthy, to know they had these drones and they had them operating about that time. Of course, it wasn't set off, but it was a NATO exercise. So it looks like they've been planning on blowing up these pipelines for a long time. And when they contacted, I guess the perpetrators of having this drone underneath there, it was Sweden. And Sweden is the ones doing the investigation right now of this terrorist act. And Russia is not allowed to get any information, to observe the information, and Sweden said they're not even going to inform Russia of the results, and they're not going to tell them what if they find out who the perpetrator is. They're not even going to tell Russia who the perpetrator is of who blew up these pipelines. So what does that tell you? I mean, just somebody said the other day that you can smell a rat on that one. But this should remind you of that Malaysian jetliner. What is it, MH18 or whatever it was, that was supposedly shot down by Russia, supposedly over Ukraine. And do you remember the Donbass separatists, they found the black box, and they turned it over to Russia, and Russia turned it over to Malaysia because it was a Malaysian jet. I don't know if you can hear that. That's a Russian jet taking off from the airbase nearby here. Who knows where that's going? But anyway, this black box was handed over to Russia. Russia handed it over to Malaysia. Malaysia handed it over to Den Haag, because that's the world court, and that's where the airplane left. And Den Haag doesn't know how to open and to read from these black boxes, so they turned it over to UK, to the UK. And guess what that means? The most what do you call, frothing at the mouth haters of Russia. So anyway, they obviously opened up that box, and they found out who actually shot down that MH-18 airplane, and of course nobody knows. They're not talking about it. I guess, what does that tell you? If it was Russia, you would have known immediately. So it was actually obviously Ukraine. Ukraine shot down that liner, and that wasn't the first time Ukraine has shot down jetliners with passengers in it. So if it were me, even in time of peace when there's no war there, I don't know. You really wouldn't even want to be flying over Ukraine. How many? I don't know. I think that's the third jetliner, passenger jetliner that they've shot down that I've heard of. So, but anyway, this all also it not only reminds you of that time when that jetliner was shot down, and of course, yes, and they blame Russia, and then they keep the information secret whenever they do the investigation, or they would call it inconclusive or anything, obviously meaning that Russia is not ever a perpetrator, at least in any of these big things that I've talked about. And you also have to remember about the Skripals. Remember the Skripals, the daughter? She went to visit her father in, I don't even know the town, but supposedly Russia poisoned them, and he had already served, I don't know, what was it, 14 years in prison in Russia for being a spy. He was a double agent for UK and for Russia, and he had served his time in Russia, and they released him, and then he went to the UK, and his daughter came to visit him, and supposedly they got sick, and supposedly were poisoned, and and this was conveniently right when Russia was hosting the World Cup Soccer League, and UK advised all the British citizens not to go, and a lot of them went anyway, and they found out that Russia was actually very great, and they said, this is a fantastic place. I never thought about this, never realized that it's as nice as it is. But you could go there at that time without any visas. I don't know what it's like now. I think you probably have to have a visa, because I know I left from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and I had to have a visa. So, but anyhow, the Skripals, isn't it strange that you never heard any conclusion about that investigation, and nobody is allowed to talk to the Skripals? And in fact, they've been disappeared. Both the father and the daughter, nobody's allowed to interview them, and they're disappeared, and nobody's even heard about them. Where they're at. It's just like these. Remember those two supposedly Russian spies? Did they say did some? I think they accused them of. Was it one of these subway bombings? I don't even know anymore. Or was it the poisoning that they accused them of? And of course, they're not spies at all. The Russians were laughing at these guys because they didn't really know much of anything. But I think it was, who was the prime minister at the time? Theresa May. She's a grown-up version of Liz Truss. So, but I don't know. Liz Truss probably won't be there much longer. I'm sure everybody's watching that. She pretty much made some bad enough financial and economic decisions for the UK. So there won't be many jokes about her, except for what you can say right about now. And I saw some interview with Colonel McGregor, who's a very sane voice, like Scott Ritter. And he was saying something like, well, he didn't have any worries about any hostilities starting with Belarus or with Russia, nuclear wise or otherwise. And just like what I was saying, I think that this pact between Russia and Belarus is just a defense pact, protective, just in case some of these countries decide to to invade into Belarus. But he was believing that Ukraine will not invade Belarus. He's worried about Poland, of course, because the Polish leadership really, really hates Lukashenko, and I don't even know why. Lukashenko, I'm sure he doesn't like Duda, the leader of Poland, either. He's a pretty radical guy. Duda, he wants nuclear weapons. He probably wants to use them right away on Russia or Belarus. But McGregor just made one mistake in there. He was saying that Poland may want to try to take back these parts of Belarus that maybe belonged to Poland a long time ago. And Poland has expressed a very, very keen interest, because they give out, like this area that I'm in right now. The residents here are offered free Polish passports. They want to hand out as many Polish passports as possible, so that they could probably use that as a justification at some point in the future. If they ever do have an army march in here to try to take over, they can say, well, they're all Polish citizens. So that's a very convenient way how to do things, just hand out free passports. But I think McGregor was saying that Minsk was part of Poland at one time, but Minsk was never part of Poland. I think Poland just, I'm in Baranovichi, and what used to be Poland, I think, just extends a little bit, maybe like 40 kilometers further, possibly, than where I'm at right now. And Minsk is 130 kilometers away from here, so it's just 100 kilometers short. I don't even know if Minsk was actually part of what was really Belarus at that time, or at least the area called Belarus. I don't know if there was a nation called Belarus in hundreds of years ago. Just like I said about Ukraine, there really was no nation of Ukraine. That's a proven fact now, because everybody's talking about it right now, that there was never a Ukraine, I think, until officially, I think, 1939. Or maybe some people said 1918. For a very short time there was a Ukraine, and that did not include Galicia, by the way, and it did not include the Donbass, did not include Transcarpathia, did not include Crimea. Just some little land place, I guess, maybe even right around Kiev, probably around Kiev, I would imagine. It was maybe, Ukraine. And but other news, the Ukraine has just received, I believe it was just yesterday, this IRIS-T air defense system from Germany, which is an extremely good air defense system. It's like a mini S-400 or something, and it's probably a lot more compact. Needing less. I think there's only 2 vehicles needed for that, and it has 8 projectiles. It's a multiple launch rocket system, and I'm not sure if it's just for air defense or if that is also shoots down missiles, land-fired missiles or not. But they gave it to Ukraine. They gave it free of charge, and it's so modern that Germany does not even have this yet, deployed. So this is a brand new system. In effect, this is going to be the testing grounds for this new air defense system, this IRIS-T. Like I said, it's the most advanced that there is, and I'm not sure if, Kiev is just getting one of these systems. So I don't know how effective it's going to be. It's just probably going to be, effective over a certain area. I'm not even sure how many kilometers. I think it's a very large range. I wish I would have wrote that down, but I didn't. I didn't write down the effective range of this system. You could look it up, IRIS-T. So very interesting if you're interested in that sort of a thing. But since Germany doesn't even have this, this air defense system, it shows you that Ukraine is more important to Germany than Germany is to Germany. That's what is that? Annalena Baerbock said that herself. She said she doesn't really care too much about what the German voters want. She will do everything for Ukraine. That's a video recording of that. Some of these guys, these people come up with this stuff in their video recording, just like Lindsey Graham saying he's so very happy that the Ukrainians are gonna, let themselves all get killed to the last Ukrainian. It's unbelievable. Like I say, it's pretty much undeniable that a lot of these elites, the political elites in America, they hate Ukrainians. They really hate Ukrainians, but they're just using them as you could call them the useful idiots. There's that term, the useful idiots, to because they hate Russians too, so they can, like I said, there was a book, and it's called Every Spy a Prince, and it was written by an intelligence operative in Israel, and towards the end of this book, you see if you can find it, Every Spy a Prince, and towards the end, it's just in the last, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 pages, it tells you how very happy they were to get the Christians and the Muslims to kill each other, because they were friends all that time. And this was in, I guess, Lebanon. They would get in the areas of one, like the Muslims, and then fire on the Christians, and they get the Christian side, and anyway, they got them to hate each other and to fight against each other. So, and they said that's one of the proudest moments of that I think it's a defunct intelligence agency of Israel right now. I'm not sure quite what that was called. Shin Bet? No, that's a political party. I don't even know anymore. I'm out of this stuff. It's not the Mossad, but anyhow, you should you could get that book and find out yourself, and learn some of these nice little tidbits. But another thing that you didn't hear about, on the same day and the same time, when Ukraine was attacking this Crimea bridge, they were also attacking a nuclear power plant in Russia. We're not talking about the Zaporozhye one. We're talking about one in Kursk, and they had 3 attempts, and they were trying to trigger a Chernobyl-scale event, like a huge meltdown with radioactive clouds, flying around and whatnot. 3 terrorist attacks on the same nuclear power plant. I believe it was all in the same day. But I guess that's something. I don't know. Is this stuff going to happen? Is this eventually going to happen to all of us? I mean, we're all sitting here like I don't. What should we be doing? Should we be saying, well, we should be saying goodbye to each other? I mean, a lot of people are saying that we're closer to a nuclear war than we were any time during the 70s and the 80s. I was in the military in the 80s, and I was obviously less scared then. I was stationed in Germany, and when it was less of a fear in the 90s, in the early 90s, I was stationed right on the border of East Germany, and we were the first place that was supposed to be going. It was on the southern part of the Fulda Gap, in a training area called Wildflecken, and it's such a bad place to go in the military. Even when the Germans had that during World War II, this was not discovered. It was not discovered by the United States or anybody for weeks after World War II was over. But anyway, Americans hated to go there, and it's an honest-to-God truth that some people, when they're told that they're going to be stationed in Wildflecken, some people have committed suicide, some U.S. soldiers, because they had just heard about how bad it is. It was also called the Rock. It's up on a high area, and it gets less funding, and weather is not so great. It's actually a beautiful area, to be honest with you. There's no big cities or anything around there, and it's a training area, and most people have always dreaded it. When you go in Army, any of you out there that have been in the military, it seems like every time you go to the range, to qualify with your weapons or your tanks or whatever you have, or whenever you go to the field, it's always cold. Why is it always? Why do you never get any hot days? It's always cold. Food is always good. At least the breakfasts are good. You get good bacon or something like that. But how that was. Any of you out there? What I should add, is, to, have understanding for some of these people in Ukraine. A lot of them seem like, crazy fanatics. There's even long before this. I'm talking about, maybe at least like 30 years ago. I've heard even people here from Belarus saying that Ukrainians are all a bunch of crazy fanatic people or something like that. It's not something genetic, so you can't blame them. It's just some sort of that terrible ideology that's infected that country, and you have similar ideology as in America. It's what they do is they take some sort of a nationalism, as I was affected to a large extent by this myself. So it's this patriotism and America first sort of stuff and all, but it's easy to take that and steer it into well, I'll tell you. I have to give you an example. I can't really explain it without giving you an example. But in my times, when you grow up and you stick your hand on your heart and I pledge allegiance to the flag and all that sort of thing, and it's like sort of like a religious event, in America, like, oh boy, this is really sacred stuff, and how you learn the history, and that, like a lot of countries, they tell you your founders and all the people in your past, the past politicians are flawless and they're all like gods and all that sort of thing. But we're taught, like in the military, to look out for America's interests and all of this stuff, that we're such a great country and therefore you should be doing anything to defend it and anything to support it, even going out terrorist acts, killing people and all that sort of stuff. And you see some of that in Ukrainians too. So it's you saw this in Iraq, torturing Iraqis, and remember those videos that were released by Julian Assange, where these Americans are killing innocent people, like it's a video game, and saying, oh, I got him, things like that. And you saw them all celebrating and getting their picture taken with that pre-prepared over large poster stamp of the Crimean bridge burning or something like that near the post office in Kiev, and celebrating and smiling and laughing, as the bridge is burning, and I guess 6 people died as of now. They know of 6 people that died from that. It wasn't 3, it was 6. Because there are cars on the opposing lane as well, and you see in the film footage that there was one car that was right next to that truck, and then there was one that had passed it for in the opposite direction, in some way, and then it a few seconds later that even burst into flame. So at least 6 people died, and it's not a event that anybody should be celebrating. And you even heard about this revenge strike by Russia on the Kiev and other infrastructure in places of Ukraine. And Kiev says 11 people died, but it's apparent, I think it was like 11 o'clock in the morning, that actually more people died. But I believe the reason why they say 11 people died is just to underplay this and make Russia think that their attack was unsuccessful or so. Who knows? Maybe 200, maybe 500 people died. I don't know. But I believe I heard 2 reports. One said that was a missile landed near the Ukraine security service, the intelligence services headquarters, and one said it did hit the intelligence services headquarters. And of course, 11 o'clock in the morning, and there's going to be people in there, and on a weekday. So, the real truth, who knows? Maybe we won't know. Maybe we'll know in a couple of years. That'll be on page 30 of the newspaper now. So, anyhow, that's just something to hold in perspective. So don't be, I don't need to tell you. You all are mostly mature people that are watching these videos, I'm noticing. And, we're not going to be celebrating the death of anybody. And as we see the United States mostly, and Great Britain, and a few other parties, pushed Russia into a corner, and they had to respond. It's like a tiger, you can't be poking the bear into a corner with spears and think that it's not going to fight its way out. And it was all pre-planned, as we all know. So anyway, you can find out all sorts of other videos on that. It's not even speculation. It's all true. So let's leave it at that. But nevertheless, I guess that's all I have to say, and I really am truly grateful for all of you that left good comments, and even people that disagree with me. That's fine as well, as long as you do it in a civil tone. I'm gonna at least try not to become much of a smartass or something if I answer somebody that I don't agree with. There's some pro-Ukraine people out there, and Slava Ukraina, and people tell me to go to Russia and stay there and things like that. It's a lot of fun. But but anyhow, for all the rest of you, thanks for joining me, and I hope you continue. Oh, don't forget, subscribe and say that you like the video, and yeah, at least during the time when I have time, maybe before I'm moving to Minsk, and I hope I can move to Minsk in November, or might just end up being December, and then you'll see my nice place whenever I moved in there. You'll all be shocked. But again, thanks for joining me. Until next time.